That's what my brother said. Not screamed, not panic said. Like he was confirming an order at a diner, not announcing a man's death. That voice, cold, unshaken, still echoes in my head like steel dragging on steel. And the worst part, I didn't even know who he was. It had all started just 20 minutes earlier. I was home, alone, coffee going cold in my hand, when Zach called. I hadn't heard from him in almost 3 months. We weren't exactly on good terms since the fight after Dad's funeral when he accused me of running from everything, and I accused him of burying our father twice, once in a coffin and once under a mountain of rusted cars and unpaid debts. I picked up more out of habit than concern. "Logan," he said, voice tight, "you need to get to the scrapyard, now." No explanation, no details. Just that voice lower than I'd ever heard it, full of something I couldn't name. Dread? Guilt? Or maybe it was the kind of calm you hear in someone right after they've crossed a line they can't uncross. Dad's old scrapyard sat on the edge of town like a rusted-out relic from another world tangled in vines, barbed wire, and the kind of silence that hums in your teeth. I hadn't been back since the accident that killed him, since the fire, the collapsing roof, and the questions no one answered. Zach had taken over after that, but the place never recovered. Neither did we. I parked a block away. Something about the way he'd said it now made me want to approach on foot, quietly, like the air itself might be hiding something. The gate was padlocked, chained tight, but I knew the trick. I found the break in the fence behind the old bus shell and slipped through, the cold steel catching my jacket as if trying to pull me back. Inside, the yard stretched out in a graveyard of broken metal and forgotten machines. The wind howled low between towers of crushed cars. Fog hugged the ground like spilled smoke, and the sky hung low gray, bruised and watching. I crept deeper in, boots crunching gravel, heart ticking louder than my footsteps. That's when I heard it, the grind of hydraulics, slow and rising, the unmistakable roar of the car crusher waking up after years of silence. I froze. The crusher was in the far end of the yard, a monstrous steel mouth that once chewed cars into flat sheets of scrap in under 60 seconds. Dad had installed it himself. Called it the beast. We weren't allowed near it growing up. Said it had no soul, just hunger. And then through the fog, Zach's voice. "He's in the crusher." He wasn't yelling. He wasn't warning anyone. He was just stating it, like a fact. My stomach turned to ice. I broke into a sprint, dodging scrap heaps and jagged rebar like they were reaching for my ankles. The roar grew louder. I knew that sound. It meant the jaws had clamped shut. It meant something was being flattened. As I reached the clearing, I saw it, the crusher, its massive hydraulic arms pressing down on a black car, roof caving in, glass exploding outward, tires bending like wet paper. I screamed his name, Zach. But my voice disappeared under the shriek of collapsing steel. I couldn't see him, couldn't see anyone. Just the car, halfway gone. I skidded to a stop, heart racing, eyes searching the booth. It was empty. Then I saw it, something glinting in the dirt near the machine. A wallet. I staggered toward it, knees weak, blood thundering in my ears. I picked it up. It was mine, but I hadn't seen it in weeks. It had gone missing from my apartment, no signs of a break-in, just gone. And now here it was, at a crime scene, next to a car being crushed into silence. My fingers trembled. What the hell was going on? I turned, expecting, hoping to see Zach step out of the shadows. But no one came, just silence. Then, slowly, the crusher hissed and powered down. The machine exhaled like it had just fed. Smoke curled upward. The car was nearly flat. Whoever had been inside was gone, reduced to metal and bone. I couldn't breathe. My vision tunneled. Someone had just died. Someone in a black car. And for a moment I thought, was it meant to be me? That's when I saw the camera, still mounted above the booth. The red light blinking, recording. The entire thing had been caught on tape. And then it hit me, I was being framed. Someone wanted it to look like I had lured someone to the crusher, or worse, that I'd been trying to destroy the evidence. I backed away, footsteps unsure, mind spiraling. I had to find Zach. I had to find out what the hell was happening. But before I could move again, I heard footsteps, soft, deliberate, somewhere in the fog. Not running, not panicked, just walking, watching. I turned, but no one was there. And then, from somewhere in the mist, another voice. Not Zach's. Wrong brother, wrong time. That's when I realized this wasn't an accident. This was a setup, and someone had just made their first move. The hiss of the crusher faded, but the sound echoed in my skull like a warning that wouldn't stop ringing. I stood there, staring at the mangled car, half flattened into a metallic tomb, smoke curling from its torn seams like some grotesque incense offering to a god of secrets and lies. My fingers clenched the edge of the control booth door as I yanked it open, breath held tight, expecting to find Zach either at the controls or slumped over with blood on his hands or tears in His eyes, but the booth was empty, cold and coated with dust, as if no one had stepped inside in days. I turned, heart still hammering, when something caught my eye on the ground below, something black and familiar, half buried in gravel and grease. I knelt, hands shaking, and pulled it free. My wallet, the same one that vanished from my apartment. 3 weeks ago, I'd searched for it everywhere, thinking maybe I'd dropped it or left it in my truck, but deep down, I knew something was off back then. Now it was here, in the scrapyard, at a scene that looked too much like a murder, and I was the one being framed for it. My breath came short and sharp, chest tightening like a vice. I opened the wallet with trembling hands. My ID, my expired insurance card, even the movie ticket stub from the night Dad died, it was all still inside. Someone had stolen it just to plant it here. Someone wanted me to be connected to this crime, tied in blood and oil and steel. But who? And more terrifyingly, why? I looked around, scanning the fog-choked yard, the rusted skeletons of cars casting long shadows under the flickering overhead lights. Zach was nowhere to be seen. No footprints, no tire tracks, nothing but silence and that damn red blinking light from the surveillance camera perched high above the crusher, recording everything. My mind screamed at me to leave, to run, to disappear, but instead I climbed back into the booth and accessed the feed. The footage showed what I feared. The car being driven into position by someone in a hoodie, head down, gloves on. No face, no sound. Then moments later, another figure walking through the frame, taller, broader, and unmistakably Zach. But just before the screen went black, I caught a glimpse of a third figure, crouching behind a wrecked van near the back fence. I leaned in, frozen. I hadn't seen that face in years. Caleb, our cousin, the one Dad banned from the yard before he died, the one who tried to sell off parts of the business without permission, the one who disappeared after Dad caught him skimming thousands from the books. Caleb, back from the dead or the shadows, now lurking in the scrapyard like a ghost with unfinished business. The memory of him punched through me like a steel pipe. To the gut. He had always been dangerous in the quiet way, smiling too long, laughing too late, eyes never meeting yours unless he needed something. And now, here he was, near the crusher, on the night a body just got flattened into oblivion. My thoughts raced. Was he the one who stole my wallet? Had he framed Zach? Framed me? Or was he here for something else entirely? I snapped photos of the footage with my phone, but the image was grainy, distorted, no clear proof, just shadows and bad angles. Still, it was something. I needed to get out of there before someone else showed up, someone who might not leave. A witness behind next time. I stuffed my wallet in my jacket and moved toward the fence, but the moment I turned the corner of the booth, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text, unknown number, just 2 words, too late. I froze, my blood turned cold. I looked around, scanning the darkness for movement, for eyes, for breath that wasn't mine. Nothing, just the scrapyard, still and waiting. I backed away slowly, boots crunching gravel like shattered glass underfoot. I didn't go home, I drove. Straight to the diner on Route 7, the one Dad used to take us to after long days at the yard. I sat in the far corner booth, heart still thrumming, and called the only person who might still believe me. Monica, Dad's old lawyer. She'd been like an aunt to us growing up, always fair, always sharp. I told her everything, well, most of it, and asked her if anything unusual had come up in Dad's will, anything that might explain why Caleb would suddenly reappear after all this time. Her silence lasted too long. Then, finally, she said, "Logan, I can't talk on the phone. Come see me tomorrow, and be careful tonight." She hung up before I could even say goodbye. I sat there for what felt like hours, playing the footage over in my mind, trying to decode Caleb's reason for being there. Was he working with Zach? Against him? Or was this something bigger, something going all the way back to the night Dad died? I remembered the way the fire started in the garage, the way the alarms failed, the way Zach found him too late, and how Caleb had vanished from town the very next day. Was that really an accident? Or had the rot started long before I realized? I left the diner after midnight, unable to sleep, unable to breathe right. On my way back to my truck, I found something tucked under my windshield wiper. A single bolt, clean, new, and attached to it a note, scribbled in pencil, smudged but legible. "The next one's yours. Stay out of the yard." I looked up, scanning the empty lot, but no one was there. The wind cut through me like razors. Someone didn't want me digging. Someone was trying to bury the truth under steel, under silence, under fear. But they'd made one mistake. They didn't crush the only thing I had left: questions. I found Caleb where I always suspected he'd end up, holed up in a rust-eaten trailer on the far edge of town, behind a shuttered pawn shop and a burned-out gas station, a place so forgotten it might as well have been erased from the map. I kicked the door open without knocking, half expecting a gun in my face, but instead I found him sitting calmly at a cracked vinyl booth, drinking warm beer and watching an old VHS tape of pro wrestling like it was gospel. He didn't flinch, didn't reach for a weapon, didn't even look surprised. He just smirked like he'd been expecting me for hours. "Took you long enough," he said, as if this was some family reunion, not a confrontation between two men who both might have tried to kill each other in another lifetime. My fists curled, rage bubbling, but I held it in barely. "You were at the scrapyard," I snapped. "You left my wallet by the crusher. You trying to get me arrested or buried?" He didn't deny it. He just took a slow sip and tilted his head toward the cluttered counter beside him, where a folder lay half open, edges yellowed, paper brittle with age. "You still don't get it, do you, Logan?" he said, and slid the document across the table like it was a playing card that beat every hand I thought I had. I grabbed it and my heart dropped. Dad's original will, not the version Monica had read at the funeral. This one had no fancy lawyer watermark, no notarized signature, just ink, coffee stains, and a truth sharp enough to draw blood. According to this will, the scrapyard wasn't Zach's alone. It was split 3 ways: Zach, me, and Caleb, equal thirds. But only if all 3 of us were alive. My eyes scanned the clause again, hands going numb, in the event of the death of any listed beneficiary, their share shall be equally divided between the surviving parties. I stared at the line, brain trying to digest what my gut already understood. If I died, Zach and Caleb would split my share. If Caleb died, Zach and I would split his, if Zach died. You get the idea. Suddenly, everything twisted. The fight with Zach, his weird phone call, the body in the crusher, my stolen wallet, Caleb's reappearance. It wasn't just a family feud anymore, it was a math problem. A dangerous, deadly equation. 3 lives, 1 scrapyard, 2 would gain if 1 disappeared. And someone, maybe. Everyone had started calculating. I looked up and Caleb was watching me, eyes narrowed, waiting for the truth to settle in my bones like concrete. "Dad didn't trust the courts," he said. "Didn't trust Monica either. He handwrote this before the fire, the official version. That was for show. But this is what he really wanted." My voice cracked. "So what? You came back to claim your third?" He laughed low and bitter. "I came back to stay alive. Zach wants it all. Logan always has. But he couldn't touch me until you were out of the picture too." I didn't believe him. I didn't want to. But the pieces, they were falling together too neatly. The fire that killed Dad, the missing footage from that night, the sudden disappearance of Monica, Zach's ghosting, Caleb's vanishing act. And now, this. I thought of the note on my windshield. "The next one's yours." Maybe it wasn't Caleb who wrote it. Maybe it was a warning from someone who still had a conscience. Or maybe, worst of all, it was a bluff because the person who wrote it never intended to give me another chance. I stepped back, hands still gripping the will like it might burn me. "You're both trying to kill each other. And I'm just the idiot caught in the middle." Caleb stood now, eyes harder. "No, Logan, you're not in the middle. You're at the top of the list." His voice dropped. "And you need to disappear. Before they make you disappear for good." I didn't want to believe him. I still had fragments of loyalty left for Zach, memories of childhood, of scraped knees and bike rides and protecting each other from bullies. But those memories were old, rusted. The Zach I'd seen last didn't call to catch up. He called me to the yard, and then a car went into the crusher. The timing was too tight, too orchestrated. "Why now?" I asked. "Why did this all come to a head tonight?" Caleb looked out the grimy window, jaw clenched. "Because Monica found the original copy of the will last week. She called me, said she was going to come clean. Next day, she vanished. Zach's not just cleaning house. He's wiping the slate. You were next, maybe still are." I wanted to punch him. I wanted to punch someone, but rage wouldn't solve this. Proof would, evidence. And right now, this will was the only thing that could shift the odds. I stuffed it into my coat, ignoring Caleb's protest. "Where are the backups?" I asked. Dad wasn't dumb. He'd have made copies. Caleb nodded slowly. "Maybe, but they're not with me. You want to find the rest?" He paused. "Start with Monica's office. If Zach didn't torch it yet." I turned to leave. "What about you?" I asked. He shrugged. "I'll be alive. If you don't screw this up." I walked out into the cold night, heart pounding, brain racing. I had a will, I had a name, and I had a target on my back. The only question now was how long until the next body dropped into the crusher. The night swallowed me whole as I crept back into the scrapyard. My footsteps muffled by the gravel soaked in oil and memories, every twisted shape of metal casting shadows like ghosts from the past. I didn't come with a plan, I came with instinct, a sickness in my gut, and the knowledge that whatever had started with my father's will wasn't over. Caleb's warnings still rang in my head, and so did Zach's voice, flat and emotionless. "He's in the crusher." That voice wasn't leaving me alone, not tonight, not ever. I stayed low, moving through the maze of forgotten cars, letting the silence wrap around me like armor, my breath fogging in the cold air as I neared the back of the yard, the dead zone where no customers were allowed and no surveillance cameras reached. That's where I saw them, Zach and Caleb, standing a few feet apart, facing each other like two lions about to draw blood. I ducked behind a Rex sedan, engine still, rusted open like a broken rib cage, and watched. Neither of them knew I was there. Their voices were low, but the name cut through the quiet like a gunshot. Monica, Caleb said, loud enough for it to sting. Zach flinched barely, but I saw it. He moved forward, grabbed Caleb by the collar, slammed him against the wall of a rusted shipping container with a metallic bang that seemed to wake the whole yard. You don't say her name, Zach growled. Not after what you did. Caleb shoved him back, sneering. You think I killed her? You think I even knew where she was hiding until she called me? Zach raised his hand like he might strike him, but then he hesitated. Something was unraveling between them, something raw and unscripted. She had the original will, Caleb said. You knew it. You were scared. She was going to come clean. And then Zach turned away, just for a second, just long enough for Caleb to mutter, she trusted you, man. That pause told me everything. I moved closer, silent, circling the opposite end of the container as they continued arguing. Then, I saw it, Zach walking toward a padlocked steel door behind the furnace units. He unlocked it with a small key around his neck, swung it open, and disappeared inside. Caleb followed him. My heart pounded. Every part of me screamed to run, but I moved forward, gripped the side of the doorframe, and peered into the darkness. It took a second for my eyes to adjust. Then I saw it. A dim light bulb swung from a cord inside the container, swaying just enough to illuminate a nightmare. Blood smeared on the wall, drag marks on the floor, a torn scarf I recognized from Anne. Old photo of Monica on her office wall, and her purse, ripped open, contents spilled like her life had been emptied in panic. Her ID lay face up, cracked but unmistakable. Monica Lang. She had been here. Maybe still was. My chest tightened. The air tasted like rust and rot. I stepped in, careful, silent, and then a flashlight hit my face like a spotlight on a stage I never auditioned for. Logan. Zach's voice behind the beam was part surprise, part fury, but mostly disappointment, like I had just walked into a play he was directing and ruined the final act. You shouldn't have come back, he said quietly, stepping forward, his silhouette blocking the exit. In his other hand was a crowbar, stained and heavy, like it had been used more than once. You think I don't know you've been snooping around? Monica's office. Caleb's trailer. Watching me like I'm the villain in your story. His voice trembled with rage or guilt, I couldn't tell which anymore. I backed up into the container, heart pounding, trying to stall. What did you do to her? I asked, my voice dry. Tell me, Zach, what did you do to Monica? He looked at the blood, then at me. She was going to ruin everything. You don't understand what this place means, what Dad built, what he left behind. You ran away, Logan. You gave it up. I stayed. I fought for it. He stepped forward again, crowbar raised slightly. And now Caleb wants a piece, and you want the truth. I've got your truth. It's buried here, same as her. You killed her. The words scraped out of me, each one a blade. You killed her for a scrapyard? I didn't mean to, he snapped, voice cracking. It wasn't supposed to go that far. She tripped, hit her head. I panicked. I hid the body, and then Caleb showed up, and I realized. Maybe this place wasn't meant for three of us. Maybe not even two. He moved faster now, lunging, and I ducked, the crowbar slamming into the metal behind me with a sound that ripped the night apart. I ran, crashing through the container, stumbling into the open yard. Behind me, Zach screamed my name, furious, wild. I weaved through wreckage, breath ragged, legs aching, until I reached the control booth by the crusher. I climbed inside, slammed the door, and hit record on the security feed. Then I turned on the intercom. The whole yard's listening now, Zach, I shouted into the mic. Every word, every threat. Come on, tell me again, what did you do to Monica? Zach froze in the yard below, realizing too late the game had shifted. He dropped the crowbar and bolted, but it didn't matter. I had what I needed. Proof, voice, blood, and a story too loud to be crushed, not even by him. I ran, heart pounding, lungs clawing for breath as Zach's voice chased me through the scrapyard like a curse I couldn't outrun, his screams of rage rising above the crunch of gravel and the clatter of falling scrap metal, the sound of the crowbar scraping along rusted steel as he closed in behind me. You were always the weak one, Logan. Always Daddy's favorite. He howled, the words soaked in years of buried resentment and betrayal. And I didn't stop, not even when my foot slammed against a coil of wire or when my side screamed with every breath, because I knew if he caught me, I wouldn't just end up in that container next to Monica's blood. I'd end up in the crusher, my story flattened into silence just like the black car from before. I threw myself into the control booth, slammed the door, and hit the big red button that activated the scrapyard's ancient surveillance system. praying the wiring still worked and that the blinking light wasn't lying. The screen came to life. And then I flipped the intercom. Zach was almost at the booth when my voice blasted through the loudspeakers, echoing across the entire yard like a confession bouncing off the bones of the dead. "It's all being recorded, Zach," I said, steadying my voice even as my hands shook. "This time the machine's watching you." He froze, crowbar still gripped tight, eyes wide like a man caught in the middle of his own nightmare. "Walk away," I warned, "or tell the truth. All of it." But instead of backing down, he growled and raised the crowbar, charging toward the booth like a man with nothing left to lose. And that's when Caleb hit him from the side like a hammer from the shadows, tackling him hard to the ground, both of them crashing into a pile of rusted rims and screaming like animals. I bolted from the booth to keep them in frame, the camera above clicking and recording as years of hatred exploded in punches and shouts. "You killed her, Zach," Caleb shouted. "You killed Monica because you knew she'd tell him. You were supposed to leave town." Zach's pat, trying to twist the crowbar free. "You set me up with that wallet. You dragged Logan into this mess." "You were already killing him?" Caleb bellowed. "You lured him to the yard. I just wanted you to go down first." They rolled in the dirt, fists flying, truths falling out like teeth, and I stood there, watching the two men who used to be my family try to destroy each other, finally revealing everything. The truth came out jagged and raw. Zach had killed Monica, or at least left her for dead, after she threatened to expose the original will. He panicked, called me that night. To lure me to the crusher, to pin it all on me. But Caleb had been watching. He'd stolen my wallet weeks before to bait Zach into moving faster, hoping that in a paranoid rage, he'd turn on me, and Caleb could swoop in later and take what was left. But something changed. Zach figured it out too soon. Monica's voicemail still saved on Caleb's burner phone had warned him that someone else had a copy of the will. Zach got scared, and instead of crushing me, he tried to crush Caleb first. That's the car I saw. Not me, Caleb. But Caleb escaped, and I got pulled into the middle. The surveillance system kept running, and so did the live stream. Because what Zach didn't know, and what Caleb hadn't realized either, was that I had set the feed to transmit straight to the local police department. Monica's old firm had given me remote access to the scrapyard's emergency alert protocol before she vanished. A quiet little backdoor, Dad's last precaution, and now it was working. 5 minutes later, the sirens wailed, lights flashed across the yard, and Zach's fight drained out of him like air from a punctured tire. He dropped the crowbar, hands raised, body shaking, blood on his knuckles, betrayal in his eyes. "You sent them?" he said to me, voice small. "You really called them on me?" "No," I said coldly. "You called them on yourself." Police stormed the yard, shouting commands, cuffing both of them. Caleb didn't resist. Zach wept. When they dragged him past the crusher, I watched in silence, every part of me hollow and full all at once. It was over. Almost. Later, after hours of questions, after I handed over the original will, Monica's blood-stained purse, Caleb's phone, and the video footage, the officers gave me a nod I didn't deserve. I wasn't the hero of this story, just the last man standing. They found Monica alive, barely locked in an underground storage pit beneath the furnace. Zach had hidden her there, hoping to move her later, finish the job. She'd lost too much blood, but she'd live, just long enough to testify. The scrapyard was shut down the next morning, sealed off as a crime scene. Its gates chained, its machines silenced for the first time in decades. The crusher, the beast, was condemned and dismantled. No more flattening, no more hiding, no more steel tombs for secrets. But still, every time I pass that place, every time I hear a metallic grind in the distance, whether it's a garbage truck or a passing train, I hear it again. That voice, my brother's voice, cold, flat, unforgiving. He's in the crusher. And no matter how far I run, I don't think that sound will ever leave me.